All right, we are back. It is JC and Morgan here on this Monday morning. Mike Morgan currently in Gainesville, Florida, and JC Sherbert in Chicago, and Tom Luginbill, I assume, is in Charlotte. Either that or a really swanky hotel that just happens to have a Jaws frame picture behind him. Luke's, you'd be proud of me, Luke's. So I'm here. I've got 2 basketball games. I'm going to a coaching banquet tonight hosted by Spurrier. He does this thing and does a great job now for the 3rd year in a row. By the way, Steve hadn't lost his touch. I ran into him at dinner last night, and one of the people with him reminded me, and Steve just kind of looked over and nodded his head like, do you know Billy Napier, in order to match what Steve did at Florida in his 12 years in Gainesville, would have to go 81-4. 81-4 to match where Steve was at the end of 12 years.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Steve he doesn't miss a number now. He does not. So, but I had some free time, and I'm just sitting here in a hotel, and I go to the gym. And sometimes when I go to the gym, I don't like to just have music. I like to just put a podcast or take a deep dive. Get ready for this, Luke. You and I are in agreement. Jaws is, if not the best, one of the best movies of all times, right? Seen it 1,000. Yeah, there you go. Seen it 1,000 times. Could rewrite the script if you wanted me to. If Spielberg needs help, but Jaws 2, not quite near as good. But for a sequel, it's not bad, right?
I agree.
Most sequels are awful. Yeah. So I do a deep dive.
3 is where it lost me. 3 is where it lost me.
No, 3 and Revenge are just terrible. Those are those that are an abomination to the brand. But Jaws 2, not bad. So there's this guy, and I can't remember his handle. It's this British guy, and all he does is deep dives on Jaws, and he'll interview former cast members. Okay. So he's interviewing all the teenagers that were in that movie.
Oh yeah.
And he's talking about the movie, and I didn't realize this. Roy Scheider wanted no part of that movie. It was a package deal. When they signed him to do Jaws 1, they said you also have to do Jaws 2 and Jaws 3. So he figured he could get out of that contract. And they said, no. So he had just done Marathon Man. Like, Roy Scheider was becoming a true movie star. He wasn't just Chief Brody at that point. He had to pass up on a little movie called The Deer Hunter to do Jaws 2. So he was going to be in The Deer Hunter, which is like an Oscar movie with De Niro and Christopher Walken, and then the guy who was in Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah, it was Fredo, who did it while he had cancer. He did it while he had cancer.
That's right.
I think Meryl Streep was in that too.
I think you're right. He was dating Meryl Streep at the time. So he had to pass up on that to do this movie with a bunch of teenagers on sailboats being chased by a mechanical shark. And supposedly, he couldn't have been more difficult to work with. Him and the director would get in fights. He would do a scene, and then in between scenes, he would take off his shirt and put one of those little like aluminum things to help get sun. He'd always working on his tan. And it was kind of his way of saying, blank you, I don't need to be a part of this garbage movie. I should be in The Deer Hunter right now. So you had that. You had all these teenagers. So this was my deep dive over the weekend. Jaws 2, not Jaws 1, but the making of Jaws 2.
The helicopter scene is actually pretty good.
It is good, yes, where he tries to save the kids, and then the shark eats the helicopter and the pilot.
That actually part was good. Now, not to take a far right turn here, but I'm going to anyway.
Now, your microphone's a little low. Let me just warn you.
It is? My microphone is low?
You're good now. You just need to get closer to it. It's good.
You just need to get a little closer to it. We got JC hot, and we got you low, and I'm somewhere in the middle, so let's all just get synergized.
We've got it all covered. We got it all covered.
The varying degrees of audible.
So I'll try to speak up then. I was listening to you guys before you went to break on the whole court and field storming thing.
Yeah.
And I have to remind y'all, there wasn't a damn person there to protect me at Duke against Clemson in the opening game on Labor Day night.
That's right.
I will say this, guys. That was, in my 10 years on the field, that was my maybe 5th or 6th field storming.
Yeah.
But what made it so hilarious is that those Duke kids, they let them on the field with 3 minutes to go in the game.
Right.
That was not a field storming when the clock went to 0 and everybody jumps over the wall.
Right.
If you go back and you can actually Google it, and I'm standing on the white of the sideline, and there's probably 5,000 Duke students standing on the field behind me and up above in the stands, and not one of them stepped foot on that field until that game was over with.
Right.
Like, I don't know how they had the discipline, the wherewithal, but it was like, all right, well, we're going to storm the field, but in the utmost level of respect, we're going to wait for that clock to go to 0, and then we're going to behave ourselves. Well, it was bizarre, guys.
Do they still have the track around that field at Wallace Wade? Okay, last time I
took
went,
it out, lowered the stands. They've actually done a great job with it. Like, their scoreboard's phenomenal, their press box is phenomenal. Obviously it's a one-level stadium, but they did add some when they took the track out. They've actually done a really good job with that. But yeah, I was just listening to your guys' commentary because I know it's been an issue in basketball and obviously in football and things of that nature. But it's like everybody so badly wants to be a part of something, right? Mm-hmm. And they let that overshadow their conduct and their decorum. And to your point, JC, like, we're in a society right now where there is no accountability. Just go do whatever you want. There's no consequences, no big deal. So it's no wonder that when something like this happens, everybody's more willing to do it because they don't believe there's going to be any consequence for their actions.
We're also in a mob mentality state of mind where, like, these kids would never do it if it was 10 people storming, right?
No.
But when you're with a couple of thousand, you feel like you can get away with anything. I mean, that's what we've seen the last few years. Like, you just travel in herds and do whatever the hell you want, and there's no consequences. And so it's the same thing as anything else in life. All it takes is a couple of idiots to ruin it for everybody else. So if you could trust that all the students would actually storm, it's not just students, there are some alums that do this too.
Oh, yeah.
Then it would be fine. Just stay away from any. If you see somebody with an opposing uniform, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Don't even get close. It's on you. It's not their responsibility to get out of your way. It's your responsibility. Right, they're supposed to be there. I mean, like, Filipowski didn't do anything wrong. He's just trying to walk off the court. So I think this one, and we already have football stadiums. I think Clemson's one where, like, the goalposts are electronic, so they hit a button and they automatically go down to the field, so you can't tear them down. Because the biggest concern used to be in football, what if somebody tears down a goalpost and it hits somebody in the head and kills them? Right? Yeah. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
And the interesting thing about Clemson, you can go on the field after the game.
Yeah, every game.
Yeah. They did. And they're actually, when they storm the field, you don't really hear anything about anything bad happening because they're kind of used to it. And then, of course, South Carolina fans stormed the field in 2022 when they were there. And that's kind of nice if you're an opposing fan base because they let everybody else all there. Why not?
Yeah,
that's right.
Why not your rival? So, that's an interesting thing. I think it all definitely comes down to, we live in a time where the word the phrase, it's 2 words. Personal responsibility is a bad word. You talk about, in education, nobody wants to sit there and talk about it. It's almost weird that that's such a staple of American culture, or has been for 200 years. And now all of a sudden we don't, we can't focus on that. We got to focus on things that really don't matter. And
it's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah. Blame it on somebody else or an institution or a group of people. It's ridiculous. So anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, who could forget the field storm when we called that thriller at Kent State when the last second field goal over Western Michigan? I mean, I know I was afraid for my safety on a little midweek action 10 years ago during that bad boy.
Stadium.
Daggone golden flashes, man.
Yeah, man. Tom and I know the magic of the MAC in person, and I'll tell you and this is, I'm not taking a dig at the MAC. I love doing those games, and have enjoyed my service time in the MAC. But it really does help you appreciate what the Power now 4 schools have versus what some of the Group 5 are dealing with. As I've said before, Tom, it's not Power 5, Group 5. To me, it's more like Group 5 is the new 1AA because they are so far behind financially, and therefore they really can't even compete anymore. And we're seeing that widen by the moment.
Well, we're also seeing it widen because the transfer portal is going to make it worse because the really good coaches and coaching staffs in those leagues, Conference USA, the MAC, the Sun Belt, that have gone out and identified late bloomers and guys that are going to develop into something. And let's just say they play early for them, and the next thing you know, they're a redshirt sophomore. Guess what? They put all the work into that guy. Now that guy goes into the transfer portal and is playing for a Power 5 school his last 2 years. So you're even further decimating their roster because replacing that type of player at the group of 5 or at the group of 5 level is not the same as replacing him at an elite Power 5 school where the drop-off is much more minimal. When you're a developmental program, which all group of 5 schools are, and you lose a great player, that's going to hit you much harder with that next guy plugging in because he's not there yet. He may be there. He's just not there right now.
Yeah, you're rushing guys onto the field, in that situation, unless you go raid FCS. FCS rosters are so small, you can get one or two. I think from FCS, there's great players all over the place. As a lot of people don't realize, sometimes in the portal these days, you'll see a team take a kid from FCS or Group of 5, and he's actually better than the 5-star that transferred out of that school.
Right?
Yeah, you're
especially
like, wow,
this skill spots.
Oh, yeah.
Skill spots.
Look at how badly North Carolina wanted Tez Walker. Speaking of the MAC, there's a kid from the MAC, and once he goes to North Carolina, he's immediately their number 1 wide receiver. It's not even close for Drake May and that offense.
Second rounder, first rounder, too.
I had App State midweek in the Sun Belt this year, and talking with Coach Sean Clark, and I'm watching this kid on tape. I can't remember his name. He's number 90. He's about 6'5.5".
I know who you're talking about.
Probably about 260. What's that?
Is he the big end that they have? Nate Johnson?
Yeah, big defensive end. Yes, Nate, that's him. He was wearing number 90, and I'm standing there in pregame warm-up with Sean Clark. I'm like, good luck keeping him.
Yeah.
He's like, he just throws his shoulders up. He's like, I know. Like, what am I supposed to do?
He's actually coming back to App State. I know a little bit about him.
Did he go back? Good for him.
He's from Gaffney, South Carolina. Unless something happens in the second portal. Dude, he was a player that my friend at Florida State that works in personnel begged their staff to take. They wouldn't take him. South Carolina didn't take him. Clemson didn't take him. He goes to App, and as a redshirt or maybe a true freshman.
No, he was a true freshman.
That guy's a freak, man. I mean, he is a complete freak, and I'm like sitting there going, "Why? What in the?" I mean, he's a Carolina's defensive lineman. That's a box that I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was a little quicker, but Nate Johnson. Fans, keep an eye on this guy moving forward because he's
under the name. Luke's, we were talking in the A block about just all the things that are going on. College football truly mirrors the NFL in a number of ways, including there is no off season, and I guess that's kind of good for us because we always have stuff to talk about. I mean, there's always major things going on, including all the talk about the playoff. And I thought it was a more than subtle storyline that the 5+7 model is approved. Oh, by the way, while they were talking about that and approving it, they also mentioned they wanted 14 and the potential of 4 automatic bids from certain conferences. We certainly know which conferences those are. I'll give you a hint. It's not the Sun Belt and it's not the Big 12. And so it's clear that the moving parts are still moving when it like we'll look at this current format for 2 years, and then there's going to be, dare I say, significant changes after that. Just your thoughts on the whole situation.
Well, the one thing that we don't know yet, and we're going to find out, is anybody capable of being a seed from 8 to 12, of actually running that gauntlet and getting in a position to win a national championship? What it is going to take roster-wise is going to not only have to have massive, massive talent and depth, you're going to have to avoid injury, right? You're going to have superior quarterback play to even have a chance of beating a Georgia or, an Alabama or an Ohio State if you're seed 8 through 12, because you're going to have to play so many games to get there that I don't know how your roster is going to become strong enough. Mike, I did a couple of FCS playoffs this year, and I had South Dakota State who ended up winning the whole entire thing. And, they only have 63 scholarship players. So they're playing with way fewer guys. And that is an absolute battle of attrition to get through the FCS playoff with the amount of teams that they have. There's a reason why there's only been, 2 teams in the entire country, 2 or 3 teams in the entire country win the national championship like the last 10 years at the FCS level? Because you have to be built so different to be able to pull that off. And I don't see how that's going to change under this new model. If a Cincinnati's going to be there, a UCF's going to be there, a Utah, we could go up and down the list of some teams that could pop in there here and there. To beat a Georgia or to beat Ohio State, you're going to have to win at least 2, if not 3 games, just to have the opportunity to play that game. And you're not manned, in my opinion, to be able to do that top to bottom in terms of talent and depth. So the question is going to be, how many more blowouts are we going to see in the early rounds in comparison to what we saw in this first iteration of the college football playoff? Because outside of this last cycle, there was only 1 or 2 semifinal games that were not a blowout. And that's supposed to be the top 4. What happens when we pit Georgia, who would have been 6 this year, against 12 or 7 versus 11? What happens? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
I think what you're looking at is it's going to be kind of interesting. And people, I don't think the fact that first round is going to campus sites is being talked about enough. And I think that eventually will be something that's going to lead to expansion, because you win the SEC, and let's say you're Alabama and you beat Georgia. Well, Georgia now gets a home game for losing. And Athens is crazy again, and they're all fired up. Notre Dame gets a home game regardless, and I think those are going to become more valuable. But I think, Tom, the first round, I think, is going to be pretty doggone intriguing. I mean, if you look at it last year, we'd had like Ole Miss and Penn State, games like that, in the 7, 10, 8, 9s, just like the basketball tournament.
Sure.
I think it's border line up for major bowls, not just the semis. All the quote unquote playoff bowls are now involved. So you're going to have cotton, peach, whatever. But 1 versus 8 or 4 versus 5, probably maybe 12 upsets, 5. And I think depending on how many upsets we do have in the first round, like teams going and winning road games because those teams are evenly matched, is going to impact the level of I guess competitiveness of those games, because there is a bigger gap, in my opinion, between 1 and 7 than there is between 7 and 12 in most instances.
Totally agree.
And saying that 12 is not the group of 5 thing, but I mean, think about this: Florida State, and I know Liberty got waxed, but Florida State this year, because of what happened to their quarterback situation, they're hosting Liberty. With the quarterback situation like the Knowles had, that's a scary game, I would think, in the first round. So but I'm with you. Like, you're going to have all this hype for the first round, a lot of great games, and then it's going to die in the quarters, and that's going to be the key.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, because there is a big gap between 1 and 7 and everybody else, and that's why everybody's wanting to expand. And I'm like, okay, well, ask yourself this question. I understand we want access involved in this process, whether you agree or disagree with that. This is a billion with a B proposition now, right? It used to be $475 million was the contract at ESPN. Now it's going to be way over $1 billion. Don't kid yourself. This is all about money. But those teams, I have to ask myself, are there actually 12 teams that could win the national championship?
No.
I mean, are there really?
No.
Are there 8? Maybe. Maybe. I think it's much more realistic that there are 8, but 12? Come on.
I think it's – I agree with you 100%, but I don't think that's the way they look at it.
No,
I mean, you mentioned money. It's like the basketball tournament. Are there 68 teams truly capable of even making the Final Four? The answer is no. Like, we have Cinderellas, which is great, and basketball lends itself to the upset much more than college football.
Absolutely.
You can have an FAU and a San Diego State in basketball. You can't have that in college football. It doesn't happen. It's the most predictable sport that we have at the top every year. Like our friend Barrett Sallee just came up with like a projected 12-team playoff. And of course, the top 4 seeds are the conference champions. So what does he have? He's got Georgia. He's got Ohio State. Does it sound familiar? He has Clemson in the ACC. And because the Big 12 is about to lose Texas and Oklahoma, he's got Oklahoma State. So that's like the one new fresh blood, if you will, and all that. I think the bigger motivation for this is obviously money. Like, that's a no-brainer. But it's the inclusion aspect. And so people say, like, well, why does a Tulane and why do the American and the Sun Belt, why are they so adamant about getting an automatic bid? Which I'm convinced is the only reason, Tom, why they're there is the threat of litigation. You can't convince me otherwise. They didn't want to deal with the potential, right? We need to do a whole show one day. It'll bore everybody to tears, but I want to learn about antitrust exemption because I keep hearing that thrown around, and I used to hear it with Major League Baseball, but it's a real thing, and it does make people very scary in the litigious world that we live in. But just to say that they made it, so you get the money, and then you get to say, you print out T-shirts like Tulane 2024 college football playoff. You put up a banner, something. It is a big deal for those schools just to say they got there. I'll make another analogy. In basketball, if you make it to a Final Four and then lose by 30 points in the Final Four, guess what? There's still a banner that says Final Four 2020. So in football, there's enough motivation. It's not a written proclamation that, hey, 12 teams, 14 teams can truly win it all. We all know that's not the case, but they believe that it's better to have more inclusion in the process.
Yeah, and I'm fine for that. I'm here for all of the games. The more football, the better. I really am. I think getting to that point, and we'd have to get on another time to talk about this topic, but we've got to clean up the calendar in order to make that advantageous for everybody, whether it's the portal, whether it's signing day, having to prepare for a college football playoff game, all those sorts of things have got to get ironed out. We got to get out of the muddy water there and then be able to move forward. And I'll leave you with this, guys. I mean, the news that came out Friday, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to hop off here in a couple minutes.
Sure.
But the news that came out,
that was my question earlier about the lawsuit. Yeah.
Oh no! Did his clock just expire?
Well,
he wasn't getting when he goes dark.
Man,
the
ghost in the machine don't like us this time.
Well, is he on like a 40-minute clock limit?
He timed himself. I gotta jump off. All right.
Well, I wanted to give him a final thing, is give him a chance to promote.
He was going to leave us with that. I was like, that was my question earlier.
That's a cliffhanger
thing, and I was like, oh. For those who don't know, I was going to ask about the lawsuit. A judge filed an injunction against the NCAA and said, you can't keep NIL collectives from going and recruiting athletes in high school or the portal. So take it away, Luke. We've had ghost in the machine today.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What I was going to say is, the news that came out on Friday with the NCAA and the name, image, and likeness, and now you can't enforce it against high school recruiting. And everybody is saying, oh, they're complaining and bitching about, the coaches not being happy about it and this and that. It's not that they're not happy about the fact that this world we're living in now includes name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal and things of that nature. What they're unhappy about is there's no model to actually navigate it. There's no proposition to govern it. There's no blueprint to be able to work down the path to figure out how are we going to police it. How do the rules apply to all? How do you enforce the rules, whatever rules we decide that we are going to have? This is what we are doing right now. This is the equivalent of at any time in the National Football League. Every single moment of the year, at the end of the season, the Denver Broncos say, you know what, Patrick, we're going to pay you this much money, Patrick Mahomes. We want you to come over here and play for the Denver Broncos. And, by the way, Puka Nacua, you had a great year. We're going to pay you. We want you to come on. And they just get to walk away, all right? They don't owe the team anything. There's no compensation. There's no buyout. They just get to walk away with the freedom to not have to be accountable for anything at all. That's where the coaches are upset. Coaches realize, hey, the landscape's changed. Name, image, and likeness is here to stay. If we're going to apply it to high school, okay, great. We're going to have to deal with that now too. All right? The transfer portal is here to stay. But you have to have some form of the ability to police it, monitor, to govern it, and then have penalties that are so stiff, just like the NFL does with their collective bargaining agreement, that you would never envision, even think of doing something like tampering. Tampering's the biggest problem in college football right now. Everybody says it's name, image, likeness in the transfer portal. No, it's not. It's tampering.
And it's almost legal because I haven't heard of any situation where a head coach of a program got dinged for tampering with a player on another program.
Of course.
Hadn't happened. But it's going on.
In the NFL, though?
Of course not. No, it's 100% illegal.
Yeah, you're done.
Here's what you hear from it's the same old. It's such a lame argument, but you have these people and they convince themselves that the machine is out to get college athletes and they're all about keeping them down and not letting them get paid. I haven't talked to a single coach in football or basketball that's anti-player compensation. Not one, not zero. But what I have heard is you've got to have some structure. You got to have some guardrails. You want to treat them like pros, and you got to treat them like pros. Can't do this. So, but here's the lame argument, Tom. Here's what you hear. Oh, yeah, well, coaches can just get up and leave. That's their whole thing.
Not for free.
Exactly. There's buyouts.
Buyouts. Yeah. That's exactly right.
But that's the only argument. All right, I know we're short on time. I really wanted to let you promote what you're doing now. I think it's awesome that you're getting in this space. I can't think of anybody better to shed some light on what's going on in the sport on a more regular basis. So tell everybody how to sign on and see this.
I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to get into this.
There's a plug.
This social media realm. No, listen, I've really kind of thought it. I haven't been a big, self-promoter. I haven't been a big work-related social media guy. I do stuff with my kids and my wife, and I have my own personal accounts. But I've just had everybody pushing me, dude, just go on there, do some shorts, man. Get some feedback, give some thoughts on what you think. And, and I started really giving it a lot of thought. And I have to educate myself more on this side of it. But I'm just kind of working through doing some things. So, I'm going to do some short form stuff, some shorts on my YouTube channel, Real Tom Luginbill, Instagram, TikTok. I'm navigating through right now, and things pop up, whether it's recruiting, whether it's college football, whether it's legislation that I'd like to give some commentary or some comment or some critique or analysis. I'm going to do so, kind of on an as needed and as it fits type of basis, and then hopefully be able to grow it and see if I can get people's attention with my take on some things. And so we'll see where it goes. I'm just getting started off, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I know I speak
for awesome stuff.
Yeah, it is, and I know I speak for our listeners. If Tom Luginbill's selling it, we're buying it. We're all in on that. We'll keep tabs on that, and maybe help join forces on that a little bit as well. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Tom, as always, we appreciate you taking the time. And remember, among all things, Hooper drives the boat, Chief.
I value my head far more than $3,000, Chiefy.
For that, you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.